Welcome to another chat about advocacy. My name is Kathleen Murphy, and I'm a legislative policy analyst here at Best Friends. And today we're going to talk about seeing beyond the numbers and making data work for you. And I've got two of my colleagues here who have joined us to talk about data and numbers and all things interesting there. And I'm going to let them go ahead and introduce themselves. So Eric, why don't you start?
Yeah, hi. Thanks for joining, everyone. I'm Eric Swafford. I'm the Senior Manager of Campaign Strategy here at Best Friends. I'm located in Dayton, Tennessee, just outside of Chattanooga, and very excited to share some information with you all today.
And my name's Audrey Lodato. I am a senior strategist here at Best Friends, and I work on the regional team in the East region, working directly with shelters to help them improve their programming. I'm based out of New York.
Great. Thanks, y'all. So let's start with, we know that everybody is collecting data, right? Numbers are what we have been doing for a number of years, right? But how do we actually use that data and those numbers to get what we need for our shelter and for our city's animals? And so, Audrey, why don't you just start with kind of we already have all these numbers, like what should we really be tracking though, and why should we track it?
Yeah, I mean, data is a very broad term, right? So when we're talking about what it is that we really should be tracking in order to move our shelters forward toward that 90% save rate, there's really two main things. The first thing is intake and outcome data. So that's how many dogs and cats come into your shelter, how they come in, and how they leave. And that will give you a big picture, a broad picture that will help you do things like schedule your staff or budget or just basically have an idea of how full your shelter can be, capacity, all of those things. And then the other thing that we recommend looking at is granular data. And so that is analyzing data by individual animal that comes into your shelter. And that is more about making your programs more efficient and knowing exactly where where you're not having live outcomes or struggling. So for example, if you had 100 animals come into your shelter and 50% of them had live outcomes, you'd know that you had about a 50% save rate. But if you knew that of that 50 animals that had a non-live outcome, 45 of them were kittens under the age of 6 weeks, that would give you a lot of information about where you needed to invest your time and resources moving forward. You could look at your foster program or do neonatal kitten training for your staff.
So when you talk about that, it's not just cat or dog in or out. You're talking about keeping track of kind of I guess you would call the demographics of the animal. Age, do you recommend keeping beyond age, like breed, suggested breed, anything like that?
So I think with granular data, when you're looking at it, good place to start is intake type, outcome type, species, and then zip code will tell you a lot, and age too. And if that sounds overwhelming, most software management platforms will have a report that you can pull that does this. So it doesn't need to be scary. And if you don't have shelter software, this is a good reason that you might want to look into getting it.
Okay, wonderful. So Eric, how can we use that information to then craft a story for advocacy? We didn't touch on, counting bags of food in and out, but obviously that's probably something that you would track for something else. But advocacy wise, how can we use the information Audrey's talking about to tell our story about the shelter?
Well, short answer, a million different ways, but a little more efficiently. The first thing we have to remember is, of all the things in the world, the one thing that will not lie is numbers. Numbers won't lie. They are what they are. And one of the things that makes it very difficult in communicating with elected officials, with city or county leadership, is making them actually understand the plight and the situation that shelters are in. It's just extremely difficult. And the one thing that we have to remember is every elected official, every city, county, state, or federal leader, they have a lot on their plate. They have a lot of information that they're trying to deal with. They have a lot of problems that they're trying to solve for. So one of the things we have to do to explain ourselves is where we need help, where we need solutions, where we are. When we take the numbers and say, look, did you realize this is the number of animals we're dealing with? Did you realize this is the number of animals that are coming into our shelter every week, every month, every year? This is how many we're averaging having any particular day of the week. And this is how many people we're having to care for those animals. And this is how much we have to spend to feed them. This is how much we have to spend to do all the other things that we have to do for the animals, plus take care of the staff, plus take care of the facility, that sort of thing. So when we're going to a city council or to a county commissioner or to a city manager or or whomever, chair of the board of health in some communities, when we're going to those folks and trying to explain how much we're doing in the shelter, how much we're doing on what we have to do with, if we can take these numbers and say, look, this is real, this is how many we're dealing with, then the story becomes real to them. Then they can get a clear picture, because again, they're trying to deal with an unlimited number of issues. And we're talking from things ranging from property taxes to garbage pickup. Those are the kinds of things that leaders have to deal with. So when we can say, look, this is why we need help, this is where we're struggling, this is where we're doing extremely, extremely well, and this is all the things we're doing for the community and all the good that we're doing. When we can put numbers behind that, then it becomes real. Then it becomes 100 or 1,000 or 10 dogs. It's this number of kittens. It's this number of older cats. Then people can see it. It becomes real. And then our message becomes exponentially more influential.
So Audrey, you kind of gave the example of seeing the age of cats maybe not having the best income and then using that to figure out if your staff needed more training. So Eric or Audrey, like, is that so if your data is telling you something maybe that's bad, like that your staff maybe isn't as well trained with the neonatal kittens, or maybe your staff is having a hard time getting good outcomes for larger dogs, is that something we want to, like, should we hold that back or put some spin on it for the elected officials? Or how do you approach that? Because I think that if I see my numbers are looking bad, I would be nervous about telling an elected official about that. Even though I need something, is it going to hurt me in the long run? What has been your experience with maybe numbers that don't look like we've got everything under control?
Well, one thing I'll say is that having accurate data allows you to goal set together, right? And to Eric's point, when you can come with the accurate picture and the accurate data and a proposed solution, that allows you to work with your elected official to work toward a solution and a goal together and work as a team. So yeah, I think you definitely should always bring that forward.
That's good advice. Eric, what do you think?
Well, I'm one that plays cards like this. That's what I've got. Let's throw them out on the table and go from there. And you all know me, the folks watching this don't, but I put a positive spin and a positive thought on everything. That's just the world I live in. It's the ABCs of me. But I always want to err on the side of transparency. If there's an area that maybe I don't think looks as good as I would like for it to, that's where I'm going to say, look, here's where we are. Let's figure out why. If we look at this and say, this is the area that we're struggling, maybe we need to talk to our county or city leaders and say, hey, give me some feedback here. This is where we're struggling. Maybe we need to look at some of our colleagues in a different place. Like, hey, are you experiencing the same thing that I am? I mean, I don't know how many times, in the government relations side of things, I look at my colleagues and some that even work on completely different issues and say, hey, do you ever experience this or do you ever experience that? Because we all have areas that maybe not are problems, but we all have areas that there are opportunities for us to get a lot better at. Nobody has every answer, and that's okay. We don't and nobody has to reinvent the wheel anymore. There's a lot of information out there. So when we look at that, to me, it's, hey, this is where or I'm not doing as well as I would like to, or this is an area that I can improve on. Let's find out what others are doing. Let's find out what other people think, and let's work together to have a solution. And there's at the end of the day, everybody wants to do good. Everybody wants successful outcomes for our shelters, for our animals, for our communities, in every aspect of our lives. Everybody wants success. Sometimes to get exactly where we're going, we have to realize exactly where we are so we can find those solutions.
And that's a good point. Again, that measurable kind of the bringing home that we've got to have measurable outcomes and goals. But that also makes me think, what if we have too little or too much data? How do you know when you don't have enough to support your solution or you have way too much data? I know that's like two ends of the spectrum, so we could take them separately, but what do y'all think? How do you know if you have too little data and you need to collect more?
It's a good question. I think if you are trying to look at what you need to do to work toward a goal and you feel like you don't have all of the information, that's when you really have to look at what it is that's missing. I will mention here that Best Friends has a pretty cool tool on their website called the gap analysis tool. It's at network.bestfriends.org. And you can actually put in the data that you do have, and it will spit out for you some solutions for programming. So that's a neat thing that we have, and a good place to start when you're looking at what data is necessary.
Oh, that's great. That is a great tool. So Eric, what's the other end of the spectrum? How do you know if you have too much data other than the elected official glazing over and walking away? I mean, that would be a pretty obvious answer, but.
Well, as what I like to call a recovering politician, someone that has sat on both sides of the desk at different times, I've never known one of us to kind of glaze over and think, okay, I am completely lost. Okay, wait a minute. No, that's not the case. I haven't. It was me. But what we have to remember is don't get bogged down. Don't get so far in the weeds that we're trying to have everything. Look at numbers that show the big picture. Noses in, noses out. Where the areas that there's room for improvement, the areas that we're doing great, and go on. Big picture, especially speaking to elected officials, remember their plate's full, lots of issues. What can you get in a 2-minute elevator speech, and what view can they see from 30,000 feet? Anything above and beyond that that they're going to need, they're going to ask for. Or as my favorite aunt always says, be brief, be brilliant, then be gone. So I kind of remember that 2-minute elevator speech, 30,000 foot view. If that's not enough, they'll tell me.
Yeah, that's right. They will ask. And if you don't have that information, don't make it up, right? That's sometimes more detrimental than having too much or too little data. And so I want to really dive in next to the SPDA. We love acronyms here at Best Friends. So what does that acronym stand for?
So it stands for Shelter Pet Data Alliance.
And so this is a new, kind of new to Best Friends, a new program we've put together. And so Audrey, can you just tell us more about how shelters are being asked to use it and what makes it different and helping us with our advocacy story to get to No Kill 2025?
So Shelter Pet Data Alliance is a place where you can enter your shelter's intake and outcome data every month. In order to, use it to be transparent, use it to do some analytics. It's a place that you can keep track of all of your data. And reporting shelter data is just a best practice. It's a good practice to publish your intake and outcome data every month so that your community can know how you're doing and your community can know, what their opportunities are for help. SPDA makes it easier to do that, which is wonderful. And another thing to know about data reporting, too, is that in some states, data reporting is even mandated. And so SPDA can just be a place that you can keep track of your data.
kind of check off that box that's required. And so once this is up and running, Eric, do you see this as a great tool for us to use in advocacy?
Oh, absolutely. This will be as much up to the date or up to the minute reporting as any program out there, or more so for that matter. And instead of having to wait on data and to extrapolate it to talk to elected officials to say, hey, this is an area that needs more support, or look how great this is, we can use that to show, hey, look at the vast improvements that have been made in the last 30 days. Look at what's happened in the last 90 days. Here's an area we could use a little more support and a little more help, but look at all the advancements. So, I mean, the faster we can provide accurate data, and the better off everyone is.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So up to the date, but will it be able to record that historic data too? Because I know a lot of times elected officials will say, okay, so that's how we're doing now, but how does that compare to a year ago? Or how does that compare to our peer cities? Is that going to be in there too? Can I find that?
Yeah, you'll have the ability to import your historical data as well.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, is there anything else we need to add about SPDA before we wrap up?
I don't think so.
Okay, well, great. Well, thank you, network partners, for joining us again today. Our next episode is about coalition, so I know you'll want to join us then too. And so just thank you so much, Eric and Audrey, for joining us as well and giving some insight on how to use these numbers to our benefit. Thank you.
Absolutely. Have a great day, everyone. Thanks for joining.